Clap along if you know what happiness is to you. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like that's what you want to do.
Thank you for continuing to pause with me, Kimberly Joyce, your host on this 21-day empowering educational series. Take a journey within to confidently step into whom you are meant to be through self-awareness, self-acceptance, and self-love. Self-love is essential to creating more joy in our lives. We must be aware of the things we are saying to ourselves. Being kind to ourselves is a daily self-love practice. Let's dig deep and peel back the layers to take a journey within to discover clarity, confidence, and inner strength so we can reclaim our voice with author and life coach Denise Dominguez. Much gratitude for Denise's courageousness to confidently share her story to empower others to embrace, embody, and empower themselves. Hi, Denise. Would you like to share a little more about yourself and your journey through self-awareness, self-acceptance, and self-love?
Absolutely. Thank you, Kimberly, for having me on here as your guest and sharing my message with your audience. The message of self-love and self-acceptance is huge, and it's getting more and more popular all the time. So kudos to you for putting this out there. So my journey is, well, this whole journey of healing started with me leaving my 22-year toxic relationship that I knew was toxic, but I didn't know the absolute 100% truth of what was really going on. So that was in 2011, and I left a very codependency, like I said, toxic relationship, and moved 3 states away with nothing but a futon couch and an air mattress, because that's how enough is enough, to the point where I was like, I'm done. And that led me to being on my own financially for the first time, which led me to, hey, I want to create my own business, because I had run his business successfully in Florida, which is where I'm from. And so all of these pieces led me to being in this amazing world of the coaching world and the personal development world and personal growth world. But a long story short is that I went through my healing journey after I realized I was trying to help women heal from divorce, and I had no tools. And how can a wounded person help another wounded person? It doesn't happen. And so the energy was not, conveying through the meetings and the phone calls and everything. So that was when I took a complete step back and focused on myself for 18 months and dove really deep into my healing journey. So what that looked like was first realizing the truth of what my 22-year relationship was. So not only was it toxic, but it was very abusive. There was trauma bonding in there. There was trauma, lots of trauma, lots of drama. I was in love with a man who was incapable of loving. And so all of those truths were such hard pills to swallow, but I got through that with the help of my coach and just really having the desire to get through this so I could get to the other side. So during that journey is when I had my, self-love and self-acceptance go together hand in hand, right? Because if you love yourself, you accept yourself. Loving yourself is loving yourself exactly the way you are right now. Because when we don't love ourselves, that's when we're in constant criticism and judgment about ourselves. So I only love myself when I weigh a certain weight, that's not self-love. Or I only love myself when my hair is perfect. That's not self-love. Self-love is the whole shawana shebang bang, the whole gamma. And accepting okay, so I'm not at my, ideal or goal weight, or no, my hair doesn't look, perfect today or whatever, but I still embrace and love myself and accept who I am right now. So that's a long answer to your to your question.
Perfect. So how do we begin to become more self-aware of our feelings, emotions, our patterns, even our triggers and limiting beliefs that kind of keep us stuck from moving forward? I mean, like, what did you have to tap into to get to know yourself better, like to be more self-aware of your inner world?
So it was through my healing journey that all of that came about. And the universe is so amazing because it literally leaves us breadcrumbs to follow. And if we follow the breadcrumbs, if we will be led to the exact path. You know, we're always on the right path, no matter what. But when we follow these breadcrumbs, where it's like, oh, okay, that was, meant to be, and that was meant to happen. I was supposed to be with that person, and all of those things. So it was through my healing journey that I realized, first of all, triggers. I love that topic. That is one of my favorite topics, because the first time I did a trigger exercise with my coach that I now teach my clients was, because we're all like, yeah, so-and-so triggers me, or that triggers me, or sometimes we're not even aware of that triggers me so bad. It's like, if we watch like something on TV or somebody posts something on Facebook, I'm like, oh, that person really, pisses me off or whatever. And then we just go about our day. We dismiss it. We don't realize the depth of what that trigger means. So the first time that I did a trigger exercise, I was asked, who triggers me? And at the time it was my ex. Okay. Well, what triggers you about him? And then I went on and explained, the things that triggered me about him. And then to dive a little deeper was, okay, well, how does that make you feel? And then I explained how that makes me feel. And then it was like, well, who made you feel like that when you were growing up? What? What? Wait a minute. We just, we connected the dots, because everything ties back to our childhood. The relationship that I had for 22 years, my ex was showing me what I needed to learn about me. And it was through my healing journey that I learned and realized all of this. So when I answered the question, and first it was, oh crap, that, it took me by surprise. And then it was, oh, well, my mom made me feel like that, or my dad made me feel like that. Okay. And then you keep diving deeper. You keep asking these questions to dive deeper into connecting these dots so that you can peel, shed, and heal back that layer to get to who you really are. Right. And so that was my journey in the triggering. And so now, the other thing about triggers is people don't realize, like, a trigger is something that hurts you, pisses you off the most, and it's always an old story and an open wound. So.
And so we have to sit with that and be able to be with that in order to gain more clarity on our direction or purpose.
Yeah.
And so going back to self-acceptance, what's your definition or interpretation of self-acceptance, and what's your approach for creating compassionate self-acceptance for others?
Well, I believe that when you accept yourself for who you are and you realize like how reality really works, then you will easily accept other people for who they are, especially when we're talking about toxic people, because this is my specialty, right?
Mm-hmm.
And those can be like really big triggers. My mother, who's such a narcissist or a sociopath or whatever, and I just want to, when we have those emotions and feelings about people, it's really a reflection of us. It's something that's why it's so beautiful. It's something that we need to look inside of us. So it's not that you're damaged or not that you're broken. It simply means it's a part of you that needs your attention. It's a part of you deep inside, like your inner child. Maybe you're 8 when something happened that this is still a trigger. You have these emotions. So my core belief to self-acceptance is, once you accept yourself fully, then it is just so easy to accept other people. Like, I don't judge people. I'm not going to say that. all the time. But I recognize when I'm being judgmental. Yeah, I recognize like, oh God, that was my ego that just said that, right? You know, like whatever. I said it the other day, I was talking to my fiance and I'm like, well, this is going to be a total ego statement and totally judgment, and then I said it, right? So I recognize that, but deep into my core, I accept and love people. Like I know everybody is operating from the space that they're at currently.
It, would you be open to sharing how you dealt with the shame and guilt as it was arising?
So good, Kimberly. So that's something else that I learned in my healing journey. It was all of the lower emotions that we have. Shame and guilt are way at the bottom. So I'm referring to the Map of Consciousness by Dr. David Hawkins. Have you ever heard of it?
I have not.
Oh, okay. So it's a really cool map that he did. It was a muscle testing. This is how he came up with it. It's in his book, Power versus Force. And so on this map, it's a triangle, right? And so the bottom layers, shame and guilt, are the two bottom ones. So he logged them at a 20. I think shame is at a 20, guilt is at a 30. And then you go up from there. So then he has them color coded along with numbers and like the emotion that you have with each of these. And, you know, there's arrows going down, which is like the disempowering emotions. And then you have the arrows going up. And where we want to be is at love and above. Okay. So everything below love, even if the arrows are going up, you're climbing at a higher, consciousness, but you want to get to this point and above. So the top one is enlightenment, right? So that's us sitting on the top of a mountain and just meditating all day. But how I worked through that was having a really great empowerment coach, and she taught us this map of consciousness by Dr. David Hawkins. And when I was like realizing like, oh my gosh, when I am in guilt or if I feel ashamed of myself, I'm literally like at the bottom of the barrel and there's nowhere else to go but up. So there's the good news, right? You can't go any further down. You can only go up. So that was like good to know. And so the other thing about that in our emotions is that we have to climb one by one. We cannot jump from shame up into pride or courage. We have to go one by one. So that's really important for your audience to know, is that here's the good news. Here's the good news is that you can only go up. Here's the bad news. You can't jump. You have to do, step by step. But this is how we process our emotions. This is how our mind processes the emotions and our body.
Yes.
So our body has to process the emotions too. So it was through my empowerment coach that I learned all of this and then realized like, okay, I was really ashamed or I felt guilty. Like one of the examples of guilt, Kimberly, was that I felt really guilty for staying with my husband for 22 years and our children going through the traumas and the dramas that they went through, because my decision was to stay, because I knew even like literally in the first trimesters of my pregnancies, I should have left him. And so all those years later, here I am still with him, and my children grew up with this environment, this type of, personality disorder, all of the traumas and the dramas. And so there was a lot of guilt that I carried. I should have done better. I should have, why didn't I do this? And all of those thoughts came into my head, and feeling guilty that it's my fault. It's my fault that my kids, my daughter has anxiety and depression, and my son is a carbon copy of his father. So all of that came into play. It was like, I feel so guilty because of my decision that I made. So I had to work through all of those emotions. And it was through the map of consciousness that really helped me see things for what they really were.
Wow. Before I ask you the next question, can you explain, just briefly, when we have the shame or guilt, right, which is at the bottom of the diamond, and we can only go up, but we can't skip. So once you become more aware and tap into the shame and guilt, did it soften the emotions within yourself, and then you feel maybe sadness, which isn't as strong as the shame and guilt?
I had a lot of tools to help me release these emotions.
Okay.
And that's because I was guided by a really amazing empowerment coach. So I highly recommend your audience to find a coach that you adore, that you connect with, that you love, that can help you through these emotions, because it's really important for you to process these in a gentle way. So that's what I'm feeling from you, Kimberly. Like, was it gentle or was it harsh? So sometimes it could have, I really believe, like, before all of the tools that I was giving, it was harsh because I didn't know what I was doing and I didn't have the tools and I didn't have guidance and support. But after, when I had all of those things, it was a gentle climb.
Okay. And then your body just starts to feel more grounded and less contracted.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
More and more.
And
Yeah,
then
and I was paying more attention to my body too, because I didn't know any of that either, because that's a great point. Because one of the things that I talk about with women is that pay attention to your body's always talking to you. So that's so general and easy to say. But when we talk about being in these very disempowering, toxic, abusive relationships, a lot of dis-ease can manifest itself inside of you.
mm-hmm.
So when I was in my 22-year relationship, I had anxiety, depression, which is very common, chronic headaches, and stomach issues. 4 things. Guess who doesn't have those 4 things anymore? Without any doctors, without any medication, it simply was not only leaving the relationship, which was part of it, but also healing from within. The other piece to it.
Which then takes us into the self-love part, right? So once you go through that process and accept who you are, and now it's time to practice self-love. What does self-love mean to you, and why is it important to practice it daily?
So what self-love means to me, that's such a great question. I was just saying this on one of my calls the other day, because the old Denise thought, well, I get my hair done and I get my nails done, so I love myself, right? I thought, I take a shower every day. I don't do drugs. I don't drink. I love myself. That was my definition of self-love, because I didn't know. I didn't know the difference. Once I became aware of the deeper levels and the meanings of what self-love was, I was like, okay, that's self-care. And there's a big difference between self-care and self-love. So remember the boyfriend that we had in middle school, and we were like, I really care about you, but I don't love you. That's the difference. So self-love to me is, it's all of that plus. So it's all of that, and plus doing something for yourself every day that lights you up and makes you happy. It does not have to be this giant, huge thing, right? It could simply be having your quiet time and journaling. It could be meditation. It could be going out in nature and just connecting to nature, right? Just breathing and feeling gratitude. Self-love is also the conversation that you have between your eyeballs, because this right here is your biggest critic. This right here will sabotage you. And the truth of the matter is, Kimberly, is that we all self-abuse. This is a fact. We all self-abuse. And how do we do that? So when people think of self-abuse, instinctively and more commonly, they go to like the people who self-inflict harm on themselves, right? What I'm talking about is the conversation that you have inside of your head. So when you look at yourself in the mirror, if you're saying to yourself, you are such a loser, look how you look today, or you could have like smashed that presentation and you bombed it, and you're such a loser and you're so stupid, and blah, 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 blah. That's self-abuse that you inflict upon yourself. Self-love is the opposite of that. So no matter what happened at the presentation or whatever it was that you had during the day, you commend yourself for the positive things that you did accomplish in that day. You focus on the positive things that you were able to do that day. And maybe the presentation bombed for a reason, because it was going to lead you to something better. So on the deeper level of self-love, so yes, it's all of the self-care. Yes, it's do something for yourself every single day. It doesn't have to be big. It can be the smallest things. It doesn't matter. And in addition to that, it is you having loving and kind conversations inside of your head. You not being your worst critic and your biggest judge inside of your head. So that's what self-love is for me.
Nice. Could we tap into boundaries a little bit, and why it's important to have boundaries? And is that a form of maybe self-love as well?
Absolutely. You just nailed it. It totally is. Because when we don't have boundaries, we are welcome mats and people pleasers, right? So, hello, guilty. That was me. I was a total people pleaser in my 22-year relationship, and I had zero boundaries. Like, what was that? I don't even know. And so that means, hey, I mean, literally, it was, hey, babe, I got a ticket today, and he would throw it on my desk and say, take care of it. And like, I'm busy, running the house, running the 2 kids, running your business. Take care of your own speeding ticket. Like, I don't have time for that, But because I didn't have any boundaries, I would take that on. And because I was a people pleaser, would never say no, I took that on. So boundaries are absolutely a part of self-love. You have to have, for your own energetic field, you have to have these lines in the sand. I'm willing to put up with this, but I draw the line here and I'm not putting up with this, whatever that is, right? So people's behavior or a situation or, gossiping or whatever it is, you have to have these lines in the sand to say, I'm protecting me in my energetic field. I can't let that negativity or whatever that is in. It has to be by my standards and protecting me. So here's a great example. When it comes to our kids, we're all about boundaries, and we're all about like protecting them, right? We're all about loving them. If our kids came home and they're like, Mommy, I feel so ugly today, like the first thing we would say is like, baby, you're so beautiful. How could you even say that? And we would just lift our child up and however you want to verbalize it, convince them or whatever that they're amazing and beautiful. And we would highlight all of the amazing things about them. But we don't do this for ourselves. And when it comes to boundaries, same thing with our children, like, oh, it's okay for you to talk to me like that, but how dare you even think about talking to my child like that? So we have to do for ourselves what we do for the people that we love. And that's a great example of boundaries. We wouldn't let somebody talk to our child like that. We would stop it immediately because we know what the effect would be on our child to hear such negative connotation to our child. But yet we'll accept that negative talk to us. So you see how, we really do have a double standard when it comes to ourselves. So that's why self-love and these boundaries are so important for us to have. And especially in relationships, like even healthy relationships have boundaries. It's not just the toxic ones that you have to have these strong boundaries. When you're in part of being in a healthy relationship is having the strong boundaries. And a lot of them don't even need to be said. It's just like I know what I can, you know, ask you or do or whatever, and I know what not to. Because when you're with a healthy person in a healthy relationship, these things don't come up.
Well, thank you very much for sharing your time with us today to inspire and support us on our journey. Much gratitude for being courageous to share your story to empower others to embrace themselves. Is there anything else that you'd like to add today?
Yes, I always leave this message for everybody who's watching. Be kind and patient with yourself every single day.
And take action now to get in alignment with your thoughts and actions. Each of us is the creator of our own reality. Holding ourselves accountable and asking for support when we need it is essential to personal transformation. Let's continue learning on this self-love journey. Click on the link in your email to receive Denise's generous, free self-love video series to break through the resistance and get unstuck. It is time to quiet the negative chatter, shift your mindset and energy so you can begin to embrace who you really are and show up as the best version of yourself. Begin your self-love journey now. Continue to pause with me on this educational series, Journey Within. Confidently step into whom you were meant to be through self-awareness, self-acceptance, and self-love. Thank you. Enjoy.
Thank you.
Yay.